Good afternoon and welcome to episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Hello out there. Is anybody home? It's Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2020, Mexican Independence Day or Taco Tuesday. But since we already have one kind of Corona around, we won't have the Corona beer to drink with it. Hope you're doing well. Is anybody home? I shifted this to 3 in the afternoon as a coffee break. I just want to let people know that they can have tea as well as coffee. I'm having some chai, actually. Is anybody home? I'm just going to give things a few minutes here, percolating. There's somebody arriving. Yes, I should have started at 3 o'clock, but it's coffee break update with yours truly, Isaac George, here on Facebook. And I'd like to wish you a good afternoon if you are here in the UK or Europe, and a good morning if you are on the west coast of the United States. And I think it would be morning still on the East Coast. Yes, it would. Anyway, it's lovely to have you here this afternoon. As you can see by the title of this particular episode, this first episode of my coffee break updates, which are going to happen every Tuesday and Thursday afternoons here in the UK at 3 p.m. British summertime, Central Standard or Central Daylight Savings European time. It would be 4 p.m. East Coast of the United States. It would be at 10 a.m., and on the west coast of the United States it would be 7 a.m., bright and early. So, Phantom Menace, what is this about? When I had put up my blurb this morning about having the first episode today, I had mentioned, what if we didn't know everything we did know, or what if we think that everything we do know is not right, it's wrong. The reason I'm putting this out here, and the idea of the Phantom Menace, an allusion to the first of the Star Wars series, is that we have a phantom, and this phantom is what is going on in terms of the virus itself, the so-called virus. Good morning, Michael. The so-called virus, which isn't behaving anything like any previous virus that has ever existed in any pandemic. It's also a phantom menace that kind of refers to the idea of ideas or information that is either not available or being withheld or not fully disclosed, information that is doctored, information that is, how should we say it, dubious in terms of its content. Now, I'm not referring to conspiracy theory stuff here. I'm referring to mainstream media as well as conspiracy theory. So too often, mainstream media comes up looking not so good in terms of its fact-checking or its journalistic integrity, or even scientific integrity can be also questioned. There's a lot of orthodoxy out there in terms of what is real and what is factual and what is not. So I try to encourage people to do their own thinking and do their own research. As such, this is a spiritual crisis. Yes, what is happening on the planet is a spiritual crisis. And it's also an environmental crisis, and I'll get to that in a moment. So here's the thing with coronavirus itself. There's still gaps in our knowledge and how it's spreading and what's going on with it. A lot of very reputable physicians are coming out now and saying that social distancing isn't what we should be doing. We shouldn't be wearing the masks. I saw a news article the other day of somebody who crashed their car into a utility pole because they fell asleep behind the wheel wearing a mask. I went shopping on Saturday wearing a full mask, going to a Sainsbury's store. Hello, Lexia. Hello, SA. Wearing a mask, wearing the prerequisite gloves, and keeping the 2 meters distance and everything. At the end of the shopping, I noticed my vision was blurry and everything looked duller. And I also noticed that my hearing wasn't so good and I felt kind of strange. What that is called is carbon dioxide poisoning. So here's a piece of disinformation going around, wearing the mask. You know, what if all those doctors and nurses in hospitals who are wearing masks for long extended periods of time are falling ill and maybe even contracting this dreaded phantom menace known as coronavirus because of that fact, because they are oxygen deprived. Consider the possibility. Now warnings are going out about not wearing masks or wearing them for very limited periods of time. It's amazing how fact all of a sudden turns into fallacy these days. So here's something else to consider around the so-called spreading this. Dr. Buttar and some other physicians are saying it's absolutely ludicrous that this stuff can transmit or be contagious within 2 meters of another person, or 5 meters or 6 meters or even half a mile. In other words, it's not airborne. So if it's not airborne or has the capacity of being airborne, then how in the world are people spreading it, if that is the case? Now, a hospital in France less than an hour ago reported that the first case that they became aware of after retesting some samples from pneumonia patients back in December discovered that one person tested positive for COVID-19. And you know where he was? He had only gone to Tunisia and back again. And the only person he was with was his wife, contact the whole time. He'd never been to China. He'd never been in contact with anybody from China or who traveled back from China. And 2 of his children also came down with this /pneumonia, coronavirus, whatever. But his wife, who was with him the whole time, never got it and never positively tested for it either. So this is less news that's less than an hour old coming from France. He was sick for 15 days, recovered fully. And he, again, the Paris hospitals are scratching their head going, well, was this the first coronavirus patient in Europe that they didn't know about until an hour ago? Okay, it was just reported an hour ago. What is going on? The phantom news, phantom threat, phantom menace. So going back to the original premise, which is, you know, what if what we know is wrong? And the reason I bring that up in the larger sphere of things is going back 6 months, going back 8 months now, actually, to last summer, all right? About 6 weeks or 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, I put up a post and asked people how many people had similar symptoms to this current menace last year at some point. Good luck with your meeting, Michael. And cheers. You probably got a nice brew in front of you. I'm drinking some chai tea here for my afternoon libation. All the best. Take care. Thanks for stopping in. Hello, Brenda. So to recap on this, this whole idea of what is the cause of the menace? Where did the menace come from? Did Corona menace come from Wuhan wet market? Did it come from a Wuhan lab? Did it come from, it could have come from a wet market in Nigeria, but it didn't. So what is going on? What are the experts not saying to us and not telling us? They're certainly holding back something, because if they really understood how this thing started, how this thing is being spread almost simultaneously across the globe in less than 4, 6, 8 weeks, that's pretty dang fast. Yeah, people fly in and out of China. Yeah, people fly in and out of infected areas. And yes, some people can be carriers without even having any systemic symptoms or anything. Hi, Roy. Well, if you'd been to my talk on January 12th, or seen any of my posts from last year, I was watching this one develop since 2018, mainly because of interest in the fact that the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction in Capricorn was right on my natal moon on January 12th, so I had to pay attention. I had to start looking at this as far back as 4 years ago. Forewarned is forearmed. So when you got something like this arriving, And Uranus and Taurus is part of the effect. Part of this is Eris, the planetoid Eris, squaring the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunctions all year long. So what we've got in this situation is an astrological marker, a possible viral marker. We've got a possible situation here that this could be something that governments and pharma is taking advantage of to ramp up their agendas. Is this really worth having stopped the entire world's economy for? Not that I'm saying going back to normal is at all desirable. If anybody wants to understand the total fallacy of that, go onto my wall and scroll down a little bit and you'll find a full-length feature movie that was produced by Michael Moore called Planet of the Humans. And I highly recommend you watch this because this is certainly part of the problem with what we see with this so-called pandemic. I have to be careful about using certain terminology here because the AI monitors are screening out and censoring everybody right, left, and center these days. Yes. David Icke has been banned from YouTube. He's been banned from Facebook. He's been banned from just about everywhere except London Real. Thank goodness it's still going because it's a privately owned network. Okay. I'm going to propose something that will turn the tables, all right? We are electric beings, okay? We're bioelectric beings. Your heartbeat, the way your synapses and your neurons fire in the brain and central nervous system, everything is electric in this world and in fact throughout creation in every dimension. If you want to call it chi, if you want to call it the life force, if you want to call it the force, if you want to call it magic stuff, whatever you want to think of, that is the core principle of the operation of life itself. Okay, the electromagnetic spectrum that we can measure goes from infrared all the way up to gamma radiation, okay, gamma X-rays, which emanate from the black holes in the center of our galaxy, like the black hole and some other points outside of our galaxy. And gamma radiation is very high, not good for human beings. Direct exposure, deadly. Most of our atmosphere and the magnetic field of the planet shield us from a lot of those things. But the magnetic field is weakening, okay? So we are being influenced by that, by solar activity or the lack of solar activity, which is changing the magnetic structures between the sun and the earth and the other planets in the solar system. So that's one thing to consider as a potential trigger point for something that is obviously manifesting as a response to something that's toxic, all right? Physicians in the 18th and 19th century and early 20th century understood the relationship between environment and what actually creates life and keeps life going. It's not chemicals. Chemicals are being used by the electrical firing of neurons and synapses and the myelin sheath layer around these tissues in the body, which are they're like high-speed DC current conductors that transmit information at almost, at phenomenal speeds. And if there is a problem with that sheath and it breaks down, those neurons are exposed to what? Adverse or toxic electromagnetic fields, adverse or toxic chemical environment, pollution, air pollution, chemical pollution, bad food, things in the food chain, bad water, water that is not alive, water that has been deadened by chlorine, fluoride, and other additives. Pollution. Pollution takes many forms, and there is electromagnetic pollution. You are looking at me right on one of those devices that creates electromagnetic pollution. Ultrasonic radiation is coming from the screens on your phone. It's coming from the Wi-Fi if you're using that. It's coming from, broadband if you're on a laptop and you're plugged into a wall or into a router directly. You're still getting it off the screen and off the hard drive and off the CPU. 175 years ago, flu didn't exist. Occasionally there'd be a type of influenza outbreak. There was one in 1742 that killed 1 million people. But we've lost that information, or that information has been suppressed. Because since 1889, every flu pandemic has appeared at the same time there was some change in the artificial electromagnetic science that appears on Earth because of us. And that's fact. So you correlate information to find a trend, to find a mitigating factor that is common to all situations that involve a particular disease. And so why is not the scientific method of open inquiry and keeping an open mind not being utilized in this situation? I ask you. I don't have the answer for that, other than to be rather suspicious of people like Bill Gates, obviously, or Big Pharma, or governments that want to exercise more control, or whatever, you name it. But something doesn't smell right in any of this, and I know you know that. So, again, why is a patient in France diagnosed just in the last few hours and reported an hour ago? Turns out he's never been to China. He's never been exposed to anybody who had coronavirus or COVID-19. And yet he came down with it and recovered from it in 15 days. So the transmission form, or the transmission trail, the contact tracing apps that they want to have us all plug into and so forth, and who knows what's coming down the pike with forced or mandatory vaccinations, and wherever that goes. The phantom menace here is not just a virus or a pseudovirus. It's the toxicity that human beings have been living with for most of the last 200 years that is now, I think, showing that there is something inherently non-harmonious between us and these technologies. And I think it also is pointing out that we have created a very toxic, chemically toxic environment that has also weakened not just our immune system, but the electromagnetic processes within our physical bodies that actually govern the immune system and the function of all the organs. All right. So if you've got this kind of heavy load, stress load that we're all carrying all the time, then if those poisons, or the poisons that are created by this toxicity or this pressure or this stress, have to do something, they have to come out. They have to exude themselves or be forced out of our systems in one way or another. Sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's disease, sometimes other things happen, all right, accidents and so forth, because we are not in balance, we're not in harmony with our environment. We feel separate from things, we feel separate from ourselves. This is a complex time, and it's a very complex subject. So one of the things I'm going to always say here is don't assume anything. Question, ask yourself, listen to your gut, do the research necessary, ask the right questions, follow up with the right questions. Don't just say, oh yeah, well, okay, well that must be it. I must do this and that and the other in order to make sure that I don't get sick or die. I think we have a very unhealthy relationship with death itself. We don't have much of a relationship with death or understand it at this point in time. There's a funny thing that I've kind of avoided, a movie that was out back, I think 15 or 18 years ago, called 21 Grams, and it had Sean Penn in it. Maybe I've avoided it because it had Sean Penn as the lead actor. But 21 Grams refers to the intriguing phenomena of when somebody is alive and maybe has a terminal illness and just about ready to pass over, and maybe they've done some experiments, they weigh a patient. They come into critical care or ICU weighing a certain weight, and then when they die, they're 21 grams lighter. That body, that corpse is 21 grams lighter. What was that 21 grams? Who is that? What is that? Is that us? Is that our soul? Is that our spirit? Why the difference in weight of 21 grams? There's so much we don't know, and there's so much we need to find out. And it's critical we find out soon, and we do it now, because there are things that I saw in the astrology for 2020 and the entire decade that will challenge us and shock us and, how should we say, give us a good wake-up call in ways that we may not want to be woken up, to force us to look at things we not wanting to look at, that we don't want to accept as actually happening, or that we don't want to accept as being, keeping us stuck in a particular consciousness, that we are trapped in a particular kind of matrix, and that we do not realize how much power we have, how much will to will that we have, so that we can actually look at things in an objective, critical thinking way, say, you know, that's not right. That doesn't work. That never worked. And we have to make a change. But you have to back it up with good research. You have to back it up with good instinct. You have to back it up with good examples. So, hi Catherine, hi Yoka. So I'm really highly recommending two books in particular. They are not easy reads, and you can spend 20 minutes watching all these vids on YouTube, and you can either be walking away from that going, scratching your head and going, well, I don't know, is that true? I don't know if this is true. But these two books are really kind of bookends. They work together very well. One is very scholarly. It's written by a Harvard professor called Surveillance Capitalism, and it's Dr. Shoshana Zuboff, PhD, from Harvard University. That's a long read. That's 525 pages and about 200 pages of reference notes and footnotes. So it's a 13-year research project and 13-year till publication, which was last December 19th. About probably the same time this person in France was diagnosed with having pneumonia, but it wasn't pneumonia. It was supposedly coronavirus. The next book came out February 20th, I believe, or 12th, excuse me, February 12th this year, and didn't actually reach where you could order it and have it available. It didn't actually release till April 9th. And it's brilliant. That's absolutely stunning on all kinds of levels. The electromagnetic spectrum, artificial EMF fields, natural EMF fields, medicine of all kinds, you know, heart, cancer, leukemia, nervous diseases such as, you know, Epstein-Barr syndrome, epidemiology. It covers everything. And this name of this book is The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Firstenberg. So if there are two books that I recommend to kind of give you a grounding in all this stuff and a deeper understanding of our human design and our relationship to the design of the planet and nature, these are the ones. And also an understanding of what's going on with big tech and the corporations and how you are just because you're on social media doesn't mean you're a product. It means you're a resource. You're being farmed for information. So you have the choice to opt in or not opt in or opt out completely. We all have that choice, but we have to create platforms or methodologies or technologies that are not harmful societally and also physically and health-wise. So that's our challenge, over the next decade. It's not just about the environment, but the environment leads, or the climate and the Earth's ecology leads all things. None of that's gone away in the last 5 months, kids. None of that's gone away. It hasn't disappeared just because of all the headlines, all right? Yes, the waters are clearer in Venice, and the waters are clearer in other places, and wildlife is poking its head out and going, hey, we can wander down Main Street right now. But the damage is still there, and it's still ongoing. Okay, so let's not give ourselves a false sense of security in that particular arena. That's not helpful. So it's a spiritual crisis. It's a crisis of understanding what our place in nature is, who we are as electromagnetic beings, how we are walking around as dipoles with a positive charge in the head and a negative charge in the feet. There's more than that. We are part of the entire integral system of Earth and atmosphere, heaven and earth, from the core, molten core of the planet, all the way out into the center of our galaxy. Every animal, every tree, every plant is part of this organic divine matrix. And that is worth reconnecting with. That is worth preserving. And that is worth being part of, because that's where you're going to find unlimited abundance without decimating resources. That is where you're going to find infinite sustainable health without any harm. That is where you're going to find peace and prosperity and companionship and community and cooperation. You're not going to find it in capitalism or the corporate mandated lifestyle. All right? Big tech's idea of utopia is not healthy for humanity or for the planet. So I will leave you with this concept of this idea. Just have to locate it here for a second. Because the whole point is we're very powerful beings. We don't know how powerful because we don't understand our basic nature. But we should never see ourselves as victims. And we should never, ever see ourselves as helpless. Okay? So one of the things that I ran across the other day, and I save quotes. I love going back and looking at different things in quotes. So this is an important one. I just have to find it. Here we go. This is actually one of mine. Assumptions are a conditioned response to the unknown. So just have fun with that one. The other one is bringing critical scrutiny to what you're told and look at the evidence of your experience. Bring critical scrutiny to what you're told and look at the evidence of your experience. There is no authority greater than the evidence of your experience. That quote's from John Lamb Lash, who is the author of a book called Not in His Image, which is all based on the retranslations of the Nag Hammadi codices, i.e. the Gnostic texts. So I think that also Terence McKenna, the famous researcher and biochemist, also said in a similar vein, nobody knows more than you do. It's what your interpretation of your experience is that is your story and your understanding. So rather than relying on what we're being spoon-fed through the media or what you're being told is the way things are, you're going to have to treat these things as phantom menaces until you can verify who they are, where that comes from, and is it relevant. So there's a kind of a simple little checklist. What does your gut say, number one? What does your instinct say? If you're not sure, take it inside and say, okay, what am I supposed to do with this spirit? Is this relevant or not? And if it is, follow it up. Do your research, do your due diligence. And keep your electromagnetic harmony solid. Try to mitigate as much as possible excess radiation in your home, on your person, cell phones, mobile phones, all the gadgets. Turn off your Wi-Fi router. Turn off your router at night. If you don't know how to turn off the Wi-Fi alone, you can find that out by contacting your internet service provider and asking them, demanding that you know how to go in on your laptop or your phone and turn that Wi-Fi function completely off. You can leave the broadband on, you can leave the router on, it's fine. Do those things that help you rebalance to the nature grid, okay? Put your bare feet on sand or ground. Hug a tree. Tree hugging isn't just some silly hippie thing, all right? Tree hugging is real. Tree hugging gives you a benefit. You're a dipole standing vertical. They're a bipole standing vertical. You put the two of them together, you complete a circuit, all right? It's like sex with trees. That's completing a circuit. Sexual activity is a circuit that actually recharges, rejuvenates, and regenerates ourselves cellularly and electromagnetically. And we pass information back and forth. This is what nature does. This is what mycelium is. Mycelium, the fungus that grows underneath the forest floor and connects all the trees and connects all the living things. The mycelium is constantly sending information back and forth. This is like the myelin sheath that surrounds the very fine strands of nerves that run through your central nervous system and around your brain cells. They're constantly exchanging data. Okay? We have externalized all that because we've forgotten about this. We've lost touch. We externalized it and we call it the internet. We call it, radio waves. We call it microwaves. We've externalized it all. But all that technology, all that power is inside of us already. We've just let it go dormant. And if we keep letting it go dormant, it's going to atrophy and we won't be able to access it anymore. Okay? Don't be a chump. Get busy. And get empowered. Get clear about what you choose to embrace, because whatever it is you choose to embrace merges with you. And so on that note, I will remind you once more, John Lash's quote, "Bring critical scrutiny to what you're told and look at the evidence of your experience. There is no authority greater than the evidence of your experience and the result of your own questioning," I will add. All right? So the next installment of this is Thursday at 3 p.m. British Summer Time. We're going to have a different topic. I do want you, if you're interested, suggest topics in the comments below, or PM them to me, private message them to me. If you want to get in touch and you're curious about doing deeper work or needing support and needing a space, a crucible, a refuge, a sanctuary, please get in touch. You can contact me at isaac@isaacgeorge.com. All right? And yes, I'm still doing astrology readings, but with a different focus of where I want you to find more of your core authenticity and dump all of the identification with the things that really aren't you. Because this is a time where we really have to kind of step into our big boots here and not play small. All right? All right. So, quote some old shepherd from 2,000 years ago: "Be as gentle as doves, but be as wise as serpents." Be as gentle as doves and be as wise as serpents. There's a reason why dragons are considered a symbol of wisdom. That's different from that dark reptilian stuff. Okay, we're not going there today. Different topic. All right. I'm going out for a walk. I'm going to go out and talk to some trees. Catch you Thursday afternoon, 3 p.m. right here. Take care. Blessings on your journey.